Hey y'all, hey.
Hey.
Welcome back to another episode of Who's Got Time? It's y'all. Y'all got time. Today, my beautiful guest is Miss Tia Anthony, y'all.
Oh, hey.
I know that y'all have seen, if you follow us on IG, you've seen me drop hints and links and shout Tia out. She is out in the Colorado. The Is that Pacific time?
It's mountain time.
Okay. She out there in the mountains. What is that song? I have a song in my head. I don't know. But whatever. It'll come to me at some point because you know I always got a song.
Ain't no mountain high enough.
What?
No valley low enough.
That's why Tia, my people. Because you know if Cheyenne was here, she would tell me to stop singing. Thank you, Tia.
I know,
Thank you.
right? I'm here
Thank
for
you.
it, Cheyenne.
I
No.
appreciate you. Tia's artistry is amazing, but I didn't meet Tia doing what she does now, which is bananas, when I met her because I met her through my brother, who has been friends with her for decades. And originally, Tia was out in Baltimore, the city of all things art and music, and just, I mean, I feel like the water in Baltimore just feeds y'all
It does. It
and
just
just grows and
does.
fertilizes the magic. I met Tia as a photographer, and Tia, believe it or not, did my family's first family portraits. As a matter of fact, you did family portraits when my baby boy was in my belly.
Yes,
And he loves looking at them and saying, "Why aren't I in these pictures?" And I'm like, "You kind of are, sir."
you're in
But
the valley.
they are stunning and they hang on the wall out in my living room.
Shit.
And I was like, this girl is so talented and it seemed so easy and like a breeze for you. And then the next thing I knew, you were in Denver and you were doing, I don't even know what this is called, so you're gonna tell us, but it was like pictures that looked like paintings and they were ancestral situations. And I was like, hold up, Tia did this? And my brother had sent them to me and he was like, yeah, this is Tia. And I was like, whoa. And then it went forward. Please take over and tell the people where that began.
Okay. So I feel like collage entered my life around 2014 ish. After moving here to Denver, deciding to go get my bachelor's, being a full time photographer, I was self taught. I was, being mentored by family photographer in Baltimore. He was an editorial photographer, and my dog is definitely going to give us the business.
And it's gonna check you if you lie. So get it
Right?
right. Get the story right.
Look, Biggie Smalls. That's Biggie Smalls. Chihuahua extraordinaire. Biggie. Okay, wait. I have to.
Go ahead.
I gotta grab
Get
her.
it. Get
You know
it.
what I mean? Just 2 seconds. Biggie, you have to come on the show.
Tia's work, you guys, if you have a moment, I'm going to put her IG link at the bottom so that you guys can see it. You got to go and check out her work on her page because it's way more detailed.
So thank you.
This is Biggie Small.
This is
I
Biggie
need the
Smalls.
name.
This is Biggie. This is my home girl, y'all. She's
Got it. Got it.
hoodie low, ready to
Got it.
rock. Like she held me down this quarantine.
Got
So
it.
so the collage came after not necessarily putting the camera down, but seeing the camera as this tool,
Okay.
right? That I would tell these stories. So I felt like photography was always a way that I told um, stories visually about the Black
Right.
family, about womanhood, about birth, about regeneration, about art, about voice. And so there was not necessarily a discontent, but this moment where I understood that photography, I needed to tell. I needed to tell more stories, and photography wasn't the vehicle to do that.
Right.
But it was like the entry. So with pulling out archives, digging into public archives, I found the ability. Oh, you know what? Let me go back, because it was the girls from Chibok. It was the girls from Nigeria that were kidnapped, and the 200 girls that were kidnapped. And I was like, one, I'm not going to Nigeria.
Right.
Two, because it was like, okay, photographer mind, how do I work this out? How do I, get this out to the people?
Right. Tell the story.
Tell the story. Right. It's all about stories. So, I grabbed some of their images off the internet, because you're not necessarily, that's like, it's, that's like this fine line between appropriation and appreciation.
Right.
So when you do that, obviously you need to change it, etc., manipulate it, and create your own from it, so it's not copyright infringement.
Right.
That's the last thing that you want to do. And it wasn't that I wanted to make money from it. It wasn't that I wanted to benefit, from it at all. So I started that with, holding these marches out here in Colorado and Denver. And it was like, what are you talking about? Like, people would pull over on the side of the road. Like, what are you guys marching for? It was like 7 of us, right? That's not a march. That's a
gathering.
Walk. That's a gathering. It's a walk.
Mm-hmm.
But we had our signs, and they were red. It was like, bring back our girls.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that wasn't the avenue to utilize to get this point across, that these girls are being kidnapped by the hundreds, being forced to become wives of these, these military, raped. So now they have babies, and then if they get, if they get away, if they run away,
they're not accepted back.
They're deemed, the lowest class, useless, and then you got these babies that have to grow up as, what we used to consider bastards.
Yes.
Right.
Less than.
Poor babies. So I was just, I'm a mother. I'm taking myself back to college. I'm trying to make a difference. The stuff that I'm making, I'm not wanting to create what my counterparts are creating, because they're much more in a different phase of life. Right. So I was like, okay, I need to make a statement.
Right.
My work. I need this to stand out as a narrative, as a story that is impactful to not only, women that are there, but women around the world, mothers, daughters. And then it was like this connection, right? It was like it clicked. I was printing on fabric. I was, layering things. I was manipulating, using all of my skills that I learned as a photographer.
Right.
And I stepped back from it, and it was like, oh, okay. And now what? From the viewer. Right. So I'm like, okay, what? Now what? What do I do? And I stayed in the lane of, okay, why am I here? What am I doing? And this was like this ancestral veneration and appreciation that plays such a huge part of my life in general. Right. So go back to the photography. That was my life, family, generations, bringing them together. I was like, how do I do that with art? Right. So I turned the camera on myself and started, photographing myself and playing with the idea that, I could recreate these moments that would fill holes and gaps, thinking about oral tradition and how stories are handed down and some holes are left open, and some, there's things that are made up, and there's things that are true and factual and hurtful. Right. And, those kind of things just all kept coming up in that body of work. And so I was like, well, I'm also in Colorado. I've also run out of people to photograph to include into my work. Let me stay in the archives, right? This is where I'm staying. I'm living in these archives.
How do I weave this together?
How do we put this together? Because there's so much of our stories that are out there. They're just not being shared.
Right.
Right. So instead of having other people tell our stories, I wanted to tell our story. I wanted
Right.
to tell the story of the, um, the 100 sharecroppers that were photographed during the Depression era. You know what I'm saying? And in front of their slave shacks. But that's it. They were just their archives are put away. The Jet magazines, how they started in the 50s, and these women were,
Girl.
they were just like on magazine covers. No one knows their names. No one knows where they
They
are.
didn't make tons of money. They weren't supermodels.
No. And then they had Jet
Yeah.
had the issue with wanting someone to own their archives,
Right.
right? And no one would purchase them. And I was like, what do you mean no one is purchasing the Jet archives? Like that's our history. That's our history in print.
My mother collected Jet magazines.
Same.
Just cut like, oh my God, till if you picked them up, the covers were falling off. She had them so long,
Yes.
but the color of the covers was not its original color anymore. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it had just, it's bananas. And then Ebony and Essence, just bananas.
But how about by the time that I'm about to start this work with Jet and Ebony and Essence, I say, Mom, send me that box.
Nope, she got rid of it, didn't she?
She had it my whole life.
I'm sorry.
My whole life. I'm like, no.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I needed them. So
because we don't think about those things, and we don't think future like that. We think, why the hell are we saving this nonsense? And so,
but she just got rid of it. It wasn't even like, her bell bottoms when I was in high school that she had just gotten rid of in the boots, right? So
while you are describing your work, I'm going to share my screen for the folks so that they can see what we are talking about, because they need to understand what it is that you do. You know what I mean? And there is no other way for them to get it.
So thank you. So, the thing about the sharecroppers that really hit home was I'm from a family of sharecroppers, right? We still have the land.
Can you see this?
I can.
Okay. Go ahead.
I can. We still own the land that is in Crewe, Virginia. So it's like this offshoot, small little town in Southern Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So like I connect my heritage and my lineage and the importance within my work a lot. The work that you're seeing right now is a series that I am working on called Real Estate Jenga, where it discusses, the gentrification that's happening nationally, but I'm talking about 16,000 row homes being torn down in Baltimore City because they have resources. It's not even because no one's buying them, no one wants to live in the neighborhoods.
No.
They're pulling these houses up from under families that are uneducated, that have been redlined in order to gentrify these neighborhoods. But these specific ones, I've learned that the wood that's inside the house is from colonial time, and it's like they can refurbish that wood now and turn it into furniture for these high-rise, these high-rise apartments in the harbor, etc. So it's like a good and a bad thing by refurbishing it, but it's also tearing down and removing the identity from the city. In my opinion, I say that just because, both my parents, they were next door neighbors. They grew up in West Baltimore,
right,
and moved around the world, and then brought us back there to live. And
right.
so that experience for me is just like they're removing a lot of history. And being here in Colorado, they tear down stuff left and right, and it's much more of like that pioneer aspect.
Right. Right. They're clearing land.
Yes.
Right.
constantly clearing and building and clearing
Right.
and building. Where we come from the East Coast, it's like, okay, we preserve,
Right.
and so I'm thinking about that with my art, right? So it just kept coming back over and over again. Me asking, one, why do I have to make Black art? Because I'm Black. Yeah. What do I care about? The land, the family, the institutions and foundations of what we're built on. I don't, the commodification of art and home is terrible for me. So this project here.
This last shot
Mhm.
with this woman standing, does that speak to the
that
same
that's a good,
gentrification sort of?
absolutely, because those two towers are Eastern European.
Okay.
Right. So there's this idea that they're coming up out of the natural element for me. And this is a part of the
Okay.
Organic Tarot series, that she's an ancestor. She, I believe, was like 100 years old when this photo was taken.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, like, where are these people and their families? Where are their lineages?
Right.
And how,
What's their story? Who's carrying forth? Right.
who's carrying their stories forward?
Right.
We're not sure. They probably
Right.
have halted. um, Thinking about photography in respect to um, archiving, and my mother being the archivist of the family, saving the obituaries, which I always felt was morbid, but
Oh, I am that person in my family.
I I understood it. So now I'm like taking over, and then I turned it into my art.
Mm-hmm.
Even the work that's behind me was, a photograph that my father took during my grandfather's funeral, and then I turned it into something that was paying homage to them.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started like really digging into sculpture and thinking about how we live on top of one another, and how we, our safety is constantly um, connected to our home and our sanctuary,
Mm-hmm.
and what happens when that's taken away from us.
Right.
Right. So all these families are being uprooted, and then some are giving the opportunity to purchase the space and to renovate. But there's so much education that we as a community do not have about home ownership.
Oh my goodness. That kind of legacy is something that you hear this generation talk about. You might hear the prior generation discussing, but it's not commonplace amongst people of color. I think I think it happens more. I heard it a lot as a child of immigrants. I heard it a lot, spoken about a lot amongst some of my friends from the South, right? Because when I was a child growing up in Brooklyn, I had tons of friends who were from the South. I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily know what that meant because the South was just one place when you were little
Yeah.
and you weren't of the South.
Right.
And then you discovered all the many parts of the South as you got older, and you learned people were from the Carolinas and Alabama and Georgia and all of that. And you discovered that they had family who owned property and homes, because in the hard knock projects, owning what? You lucky if you own that vehicle you were driving. So that there was a disconnect amongst us up north because not many people owned property. And you were usually living in a tenement or an apartment. But the goal was to work, 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 save your money, and then go back down south and buy property. And for those of us who were immigrants, the goal was to work, 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 get that pension, save your money, and retire and go back to your home country and buy property and build that house. Or you were building the house while you were working and you were going to retire there, right? But that didn't always happen because people were dropping dead before they made it home, or it didn't pan out. So it became a pipe dream for many,
Right.
and it faded out. You know how many people I grew up with at 47 years old who did not make it out of the projects?
Yeah.
There are tons of people who are still there,
Yeah.
who are still living that sort of life. And and so when you say the legacy, to be able to say well, here's the history of, and this is the family plot, and there's none of that.
Right. Right.
And the hand down, there's none of that. You got your photo albums and you got the stories.
But the generations after us, like I feel like we are now charged with becoming the elders.
So my brother always says that. My
Yeah,
brother says, well, as the elder, and my cousin says that. She's like, you have that kind of memory. As the griot in our family, you're the storyteller. You're the one who always locks in and remembers the sayings and who had what anecdote and layers on. And I do keep a lot of that in my head because my grandfather was a storyteller and I came by it honestly and the jokester. And we lock a lot of that in with the way that we tell the story. And I pass that on to my children. But yeah, it's a difficult thing. And it's a talent, but a task, a heavy, weighty task. And not one that you always carry with grace, right?
right,
And
right,
I think the same can be said of your art.
right.
It's weighty. And I wonder, is it something that always brings you joy as you deliver it, or is it sometimes painful?
It's, I would say it's mostly painful. I would
Right?
say it's, and that's interesting that you were discussing, you bring that up because that's a part of the shift that I'm processing. The work that I create and I get excited about is so heavy and grief and loaded, loaded with grief. But that's how we as artists process,
Right.
right? The things that aren't said, those conversations that aren't had,
Right.
the things that are hindsight. You kind of think, you go back and pull it, but that's how we move forward.
But
So
isn't that the way of an empath?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I have never even thought about it that way, but it is because you have to
Yeah.
acknowledge, right, in order to benefit from whatever the lesson
Yep.
came from.
And you got to draw all of that in and then give it all back.
And it takes a lot. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot, and it takes a lot from me. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
and to be completely honest, it's in my older, what am I, 43 now?
Mm-hmm.
I've developed anxiety.
Yes, ma'am.
And now with the pandemic, social anxiety. What is that? Right?
I'm gonna raise my hand. I'm a fake extrovert. I'm
Look,
extroverted right here
high five is
on this side of the screen. Wait.
this way. Go this way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait. We gonna get it together. But I'm a fake extrovert. I'm an extrovert from here. hmm
Oh, from the house. Yeah.
hmm In
No,
a chair
I don't even
or
have
on the sofa.
that.
hmm
No, I feel safe. I feel safe with you. I feel safe. You know what I mean? Like there's moments, but right. Those things are all important, and I feel like you even mentioned like the albums, the photo albums.
Yes.
There are no more photo albums. We have Facebook, Instagram, and the internet because now the internet is our.
And that's why I appreciate, maybe that's why I have such a joy and love of your art because I still create photo albums. I still print out. I'm so grateful for those companies that still allow you to print photos and create albums because I still do it. I do it for my children. I do it for myself. I do it for friends because I give them as gifts because it's important to me. There is nothing to me like the texture of an actual book from time to time, to the smell, the looking at. I want to see actual photos and art. I don't want everything to be digital. It's whack to me.
I know. I
It's
do,
whack.
and that also kind of drove me a little bit to sway away from the photography because we're in this time where photography is digital. Photography
Right.
is accessible. It's equitable. Okay, it's
Right.
very inclusive. If we want to talk about what I do during the day, that it has become a tool, right? A
Right.
tool, a medium that is accessible to all, and that's what
Right.
we wanted. However, then there's the lack of documentation. So there's
Right.
like you have a live stream of 20 photos of selfies versus where you traveled. Like we're like the importance of documentation has lessened because of how accessible it is.
Right.
So that turned me off, right? And then I started digging into these analog processes. That's what cutting paper back again and painting and drawing and really accessing those places that were forced to mature for capitalistic reasons, right? So the digital camera was like, okay, well now you can shoot 40 weddings this year and make money. Okay, well the love, right? The emotion, the feeling. So that's why I really was drawn to these collages, pulling all
I
of this
love it.
information that was already available, right? And pulling it together and creating um, angelic moments with our ancestors.
Every time you say pulling, you know what I think of? Because I'm gonna take y'all way back. Anybody remember a microfiche?
Yes. Oh, and the slide and the slide and the slide. I think that stuff is so
People
important.
of a particular age.
They're not going to know what we're talking about. It's like a negative that goes in a.
I said that to my daughter the other day, and she was like, "Who's it? What's it?" And I was like, "Never mind, never mind. It's okay, honey. It's okay."
It's okay. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So during this pandemonium, as your daughter likes to say, panoramic,
Panoramic. Oh,
I have noticed, and I have literally been so annoyed because the pretenders, the creepsters, the copycats, and the bread makers. I'm just teasing bread makers. Don't at me. I'm just teasing.
I
Are
love you, Brett.
everywhere the copycats. And I know that they are in your industry as well. People are cropping up who are all of a sudden, since March, April of 2020, these artists that were not the kind of artists that they're pretending to be now, and they are copying work that is already out there, that already exists, and they're taking on the verbiage and the patina of shit I've already seen. I know you know what I'm talking about. They making me cuss.
I do.
What the what?
I don't. There's a
And how do y'all combat that?
yeah.
Is there like a whole crew that is like bam bam bam? No, get that out of here. Get that out of
We
here.
don't have a union. We don't have. It's like it's when you see something like that, you have to like humble yourself and say, okay, they're paying respect, but hopefully this is just something that they're trying out. It's just like Pinterest. Um, they see it on Pinterest and they see it, on the Instagrams.
There's not no decoupage. Buy your, big bottle of that decoupage glue on Amazon and get busy. That's not what you do, Tia.
No, and I don't want to be like, okay, this one artist, it looked like they really did take it, but I feel like they did. But that's also the thing about artists, right? You steal like an artist because all art is conversations that we're all having in our heads, that we're having together, that these ideas that we think that are so unique and individual, that we're also under a universal consciousness of thinking about how to process. Now when you start stealing other people's things, it gets noticed, and then there are copyright infringements like I was talking about earlier, as well as like
Like
understanding
that fine line between appreciation.
and appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a fine line. We don't battle it. We just keep moving and we keep making. Um, because either they're going to succeed and then get called out later,
Mm-hmm.
or they're gonna fail because they don't know what they're doing. But I'm wishing that they learn something from it all.
A la
And
Milli Vanilli.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
They learned, I
Now,
think.
okay, but you got Drake. So like we writing freestyles, we writing for other people. Like where I think we're at this place in art that no one knew that we were going to get this far,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're not interested in pulling so much from the past, but they're just repeating stuff. They're just like in that.
It's everywhere. It's in
Right,
fashion, and fashion too is a form of art. It's everywhere.
right, right.
Because nothing truly is new again.
No, no, I haven't. I have yet to see something that is, and I'd love to be challenged. Send me what, if you think it's new, send it to me. I love it.
Yeah, it's
You know,
hard.
but nothing stands out like a Romare Bearden or
Not
a
much.
Deborah, Robertson, or you know what I'm saying, like those things. And I think that's what also pulled me into curating, right? Curating into my own spaces and Black spaces and spaces of color and of indigenous descent, because we have different conversations.
Right.
And, if you have this one Black artist that their work is morbid and grief and processing and catharsis in a community that is creating stuff that is not, but that's not, doesn't make that work, that doesn't negate either one. It just like, what kind of conversations, it just makes you think, what kind of conversations are artists having?
That actually answers my next question. I was going to ask you, and there is my lead in. How do you, during these last 10, 12, 13 months, how did you find your juice, joy, energy artistically? Because I know that everyone needs whatever it is that fuels them. But therein is one of the answers. As you move into and through these spaces where you have these collectives and you are all having these conversations and these meetups,
Yeah, yeah, I think
you
that
feed each other, I'm assuming.
we have to. We just came from a show. It's like the first show that I've been to since the pandemic. I think I may have went to one prior, like last year.
Mm-hmm.
But the artists, where everyone was together, like, oh man, it's so good to see you. I really want to, stop by the studio and just see what you got going on. And then you have the other artists that are just like, I'm not going front. It's been a shit show. Like really, honestly, getting stuck in my head and not putting anything down on the sketchbook and not able to finish a piece, or the studio that we're all a part of, that we the co-op that we're in, having to take turns and see who's going to be in the studio, and then not knowing how long that person was going to be working. But all of that to say, it pushed me to reach out to the community, and no matter how much I fight it, community, grief, processing, death and life, that's all such a part of my work.
It's a cycle, and you're encouraging in whatever way you can.
Absolutely. I mean, literally, when the pandemic started, my father passed away.
I remember. My
So
condolences.
Ashe. So
Again.
yes, thank you. So it's just like, how could I not think about that? I can't think about things that are, they call it sublime, right? So I can't think about things that are beautiful, but I can think about things that are sublime.
Right.
Understanding how they kind of connect.
Transitioning is a part of our everything, right?
Well, we have to accept.
We're never going to be ready.
Listen to it. No.
We're never going to be ready. We never want to accept. It's never going to be easy. Yep. I literally had a plate. I called my girlfriend day before yesterday, or she called me. I don't remember which one it is. My son has a friend who his mother and I have been friends since they were born. Mm-hmm. And they went up through, like the daycares and preschool together, and then parted ways, but we live in the same neighborhood. They just go to different schools. So they are still playmates. Mm-hmm. And we go into lockdown, and she is a single mom. I mean, she's a mom of one, and her and her husband and this little boy are in lockdown together. And then it's me and my children. So I knew that they were keeping themselves. And so we were still engaging the two households to keep the boys active, because they were seeing nobody else.
Right.
We have a play date scheduled with my son for Friday and her son for Friday, because they do soccer on Saturdays. And literally, I tell this story to say, I get a call. She calls me 2 days ago and says, so day before yesterday, and says, okay, so we're on for Friday and we're going to watch Ready to Love, because we love trash TV. So I said, all right, I'll have the wine ready and we'll sit on the deck and watch them play in the backyard. And then we'll come in time for Ready to Love and we're going to cuss these people out on the
Girl,
TV.
bling empire. Get into that bling empire. Go ahead, I'm listening.
All right, I'm going to put that on the thing.
Bling.
So we're going to come in and then we're going to watch this and we're going to cuss these people out on this screen.
Right.
We got a plan, pizza for the kids, and we're going to do what we do. Girl, she called me yesterday. I am at work on a computer and I get a call and I'm like, hey girl, what's going on? She's like, bawling. I'm on my way to Albany. I said, what happened? What are you going to Albany for? She's one of 9. They just called me and said my brother had a heart attack. And before I could get my purse, he has flatlined. My brother has passed.
Oh my goodness.
I said, girl, just text me when you get there and let me know you arrive safe.
Yeah.
I say all of that to say we are busy trying to gather ourselves and put the next step in front of. The CDC said, take your mask off, everybody. COVID is finished. I'm looking left like, don't you dare come near me. And if you lucky I don't got my hazmat suit on. A couple episodes ago, I showed the people, I don't know if you saw it, I have a full zip around situation that I could wear through the airport. Cheyenne was giggling. You gotta, girl, go on the YouTube and see it. It's fabulous. Cheyenne was mocking me. She was mocking me. I don't care. It's just,
no, Alyssa was mocking me too.
Black on black.
To go to Atlanta, she was like, Mom, can I use your hazmat suit?
Because it's for the airport. And then I zip just to eat, and then I'm gonna have the mask on. And then when then I could take the mask off and zip back because I could see you.
Right.
It's clear front, and the rest is knit and it's sexy. I said, you see how we be making plans and we just trying to get through.
Yes. Right.
And nobody's ready.
No.
We're trying to just be steady. We're just trying to get steady footing.
Right. Because in the art world, you've got the, plan ahead, right? So you got like a year in advance that you're planning for. So before all that happened, I was planning a museum show that I was a guest curator. I had 8 artists that had never been shown in Boulder, that had never been shown together.
You was in the newspaper, girl. I remember. I was yelling, she famous, and I know her. Because I like to say I know people. I really don't, but you know.
But you know me.
Yes, and my brother. That's it.
That's fine.
It's 2 of y'all. I got one for each hand. I know people.
I'll be up. Right. So I'm like having the process, like through all of this and dealing with that. And then 2 months more later, my friend passes, Timothy Christmas. He's a photographer. He has, he had leukemia and lived across the hall from my friend. God bless her soul. She was there the whole time. I got to see him. He was with me during, coming back to Baltimore for the funeral and all the process. And I'm like, hold up, come on. 2 months later, my cousins, which was my father's best friend, right? So they were cousins. So, I mean,
it's the domino,
right? So the children are like, I'm Tia. His daughter was our Tia. Don't play, cousins. We are close.
That's like siblings. It's awful,
and it's
crazy,
right? So I have some solo shows coming up that
and ironically, this is where some of the voice, some of the words, some of the dark in your art. I get it. I get it.
Right? Because they're never.
So when they say, well, why do you shut the fuck up? This is my soul that you are looking at. Just have several seats and just zip your lips. Just don't speak. Don't speak. You don't know what you're saying. And I'm tired of explaining.
Don't tell me because it hurts. Oh no, don't speak.
Girl.
Right. So they're like, people are like, what are you gonna make?
I'm gonna let my soul speak.
Right? And that's it. That's it.
I get it. I got it.
I came back to school thinking I was just gonna do this and the fiber and blah blah, and I was gonna. And You know what? I tell stories. You know, and they typically deal with grief. They address and they
And they
confirm.
speak of ancestors
Yeah.
and where people have been. Because if you don't know where you were, how you know where you're headed? Huh. I would like to know how people find your work who aren't in the mountains. Because not nary a one of us is going to commit to necessarily going to a Boulder museum.
Well, I'm also in print.
Mm-hmm.
And on my website, there's some links. So if you go to tiaanthony.com,
www.tiaanthony.com, which we will list when we throw this up for our airing.
yes, you can see the work there. I'm in print with Lorna Simpson, who is like a shero of mine. And I hope that one day this gets to her. I can't believe I'm in print with her. I've, shown digitally. If you go to the Denver Art Museum, you can also see their YouTube.
Did you hear that? You are featured. Did you hear that? Say it one more again.
The Denver Art Museum.
No, say the whole thing.
Yeah. If you
Y'all, she is featured at where?
The Denver Art Museum.
Mm-hmm.
They purchased a piece of my work that is in their education department. So they will show all of the children about my work and why.
Girl, you not on somebody's random tree truck. You in a whole brick and mortar museum.
This is so crazy. And then I'm on boards. Like they asked me to
That
participate.
is brilliant. How proud are your ancestors? Let's talk about it.
That's
Let's
what
revel in that.
we had a conversation yesterday, and a part of it was, me thinking that they were thinking this was about like where was the money, where was the funds, and they said, "You're fine. You are more than abundant with everything as long as you are creating what your soul says." And I was like, "Oh, okay.
Your art is speaking.
Thank you,
Girl, I am so proud to know you.
thank you."
And I'm so proud to call you friend. Thank you so much for blessing me with a little bit of your time. I have been trying to get myself all the way together. It took a whole pan de coco. Thank you very much. I can't even. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. You know, on my show, we always close. I always give my guests an opportunity and I always have a little one. We always have a closing note. I try to keep it light and funny. Sometimes it is a serious note if you have one, or, a note of wisdom. Cheyenne always got something crazy and ridiculous for the most part. I mean, you can't trust that child. You just can't. And I still have to feed her because she live here and she might call the people on me. You don't know. I'm going to go with, I know that you are a lover, as am I, of these versus battles.
Yes.
This past weekend, there was one, SWV versus Escape. Yo, the pop though.
Yes.
I'm gonna go, and I don't care. Don't at me. Don't email me. Don't put nothing in my goddamn comments on my IG. I declare war on anybody who tells me that SW motherfucking V is not the winner of this versus. I said what I said.
The rock. They do the diamond rock.
I said what I said. Cause I'm right here. Know what I said? What I said. And if Tiny don't go sit the fuck down somewhere and get her whole Oompa Loompa self together, because she looks, I'm gonna need her to stop injecting and altering.
What was the butt? Did you see it?
I saw the entirety. I'm gonna need her to stop altering things. You can stop now, lady. Please stop. Please stop.
In trouble. You know she in trouble, and now she really don't know what to do with herself. And yes, she should have sat down. And then why was she trying to get them to sit on the stairs? Everybody all dressed up. Y'all got a whole stage. But
Between her hair, them crazy eyes she went to Africa and bought, because y'all who don't know, she literally went and bought those corneas and had them permanently implanted. You didn't know that?
oh,
Girl, she had permanent implants. They are permanent ice blue implants. She has permanent implanted contacts that belonged on someone else's eyeballs. And her daughter did them too, except her daughter had a horrible infection and had to have them removed.
they're not your eyes. They ain't never seen like horror movies about just like idle hands
The
and
soul and because that's the first thing I thought. Because we believe in Orbia, and we believe that the soul and the window and the eyes and don't be no who the fool, and he ain't entering my soul through nobody else's eyeballs. Say what you want. I'm not inviting the devil into my body.
you're not invited. I rebuke thee.
In the name of all things, no ma'am.
No, ma'am. How she get that? No, LASIK is one thing. She went and got somebody else's eyes, girl. You know they be giving people's bones and stuff. Did you? I know that was in New York, wasn't it? That
She
whole
went to Africa because they do such surgeries overseas. You heard about, there's another love and hip hop star that went to Turkey and got that, liposuction, and they wrecked her body to the point where she almost died on the table. They had to remove her implants and everything and rush her for emergency surgery. Free liposuction. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Was it worth it?
The the booty that rolls around. Did you see that when it was like flat and it was like a D and it just flipped?
Remember when these big old booties weren't what's up?
Let's talk about my whole childhood. Can we? You would? I know because duck butt. With the song
till J-Lo arrived, we weren't the move.
No, Selena's.
Speaking of J-Lo, does anybody care that she's back with the drunk man?
Okay, so I do.
Are you for it?
I am not for it. J-Lo need to take herself right on back to Mark Anthony.
No, she needs to. Yes, because she don't need to be with Alex. He's gross.
Yes,
I never wanted her with Alex.
I didn't want that.
I'm here for Mark.
She need to go back home. Just go back home. Like I'm here for Ben getting in trouble with his little, Jennifer Gardner, because look, he was like, I saw you.
But wait, the shade of it all. I think that everybody might have missed it because nobody's as obsessive a news watcher as me. All the stations on all the TVs in my house. Matt Damon, who is Ben's best friend,
yes,
was on one of the morning shows, and they asked him, well, do you know about this reconciliation? And he was like, I did not know about it. He's in Australia filming a movie. And he goes, but I love them both. I'm here for it. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. Because what y'all don't know is that he was never here for the Gardner, the Jen Gardner.
No one was here for the Gardner, girl. Nobody. She was it. They was like, okay, we can't put
3 babies in and you play her like that.
Okay. Oh, you want to talk about no shot at, but Justin Timberlake and his little Jessica, and she got another baby out of that because he was definitely going to somebody else.
What are your closing notes, Pum?
My closing notes is everything ain't for everybody.
Facts.
Know it. Facts. Learn it. Repeat it.
Facts.
Remember it. Tattoo it on your arm because this is not about men. This
Put
is
it right here.
Look. What's that? What's her name? Did the little forehead?
Mm-hmm. I know who you talk about with the blonde hair for a minute, completely bald. Yo, is she not the hotness? She is fine.
Gorgeous. That one.
Fine for no reason. And I don't even date girls on that level. And god damn it, she fine. Yeah, she got her baby name tattooed across her forehead. I forget her name. See, I don't even need to know her name. She just fine.
Kanye's old girl. Wiz Khalifa. Come on
Old
now.
girl.
Old girl. Why she don't have a name?
Right?
But she got a name on her forehead though.
It's horrible. But you are
Look,
so right. And that between that and all kinfolk, all skin folk and kinfolk, those two. Let those two get married. Girl, why you dropping all kind of gems on my podcast this evening? I am here for you. Miss Tia.
Thank you. Yes.
Blessings on top of blessings on top of blessings. Thank you.
Ashe Titi.
I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank y'all for joining us tonight on Who Got Time, because it is nighttime. It's just sunshiny and shit, but it's nighttime. And we about to go drink. I don't know what y'all doing, but join us. Night, y'all.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.